Uno, dos, 1, 2, 3, 4.
When I was in high school, my family, which had lived in Latin America for much of my growing up years, decided to move back. And they thought I was that time at a good public high school, a little public high school in Connecticut, and they thought I would be better off in terms of getting prepared for college if I stayed there. So they boarded me with friends of theirs, an older couple, and he had graduated from Amherst after serving as a pilot in World War I. And I'd never heard of Amherst at that point, but then my mom came up at some point from Argentina, and we did the usual college circuit and went to Amherst and Harvard and Dartmouth and I think Haverford and maybe one or two other places. And Amherst clicked with me right away. I said, hey, this looks really nice. And Ted Dayton wrote a very nice letter to Dean Wilson vouching for me. And it just went from there, and I ended up applying early decision and getting in. And I do remember the day the mail came. I came home, no one else was at the Dayton's house when I got there, and there was a letter from Amherst, and I opened it, and it said I'd been accepted, and I ran up and down the stairs 5 or 6 times screaming. I figured the smartest thing I did was when I started inquiring to Amherst and other places, like the first letter of inquiry I sent, sophomore year of high school was from Argentina, and the second one was from Mexico.
That didn't hurt you, given
yeah, right.
And
anyway, so I did the interview with Dean Wilson, but then it was just waiting for the applied early decision and waiting for that letter that got me screaming. My dad was an engineer. He was Swedish, and I was born in Sweden. And he just was sort of a nomad. He liked working in different cultures. He and my mom are both great at foreign languages. They both spoke 5 or 6 languages very fluently. And he just never liked to stay in one place too long. So he'd change jobs, find a new job, and off we'd go. So, and in fact, I mean, up until 8th grade, 9th grade, I'd been like in 11 schools in Latin America and in Massachusetts and elsewhere. So they were probably right. It made sense for me to settle down and stay in one place for a while. Well, I hate to say this, but it actually was probably my best year academically. The high school, as I said, that I went to was very good, and so I came in well prepared. I survived English 1-2 fine, tolerated physics, and the year went pretty well. And I had lots of friends who were pulling their hair out, and I was glad I wasn't. But the one thing that was probably not ideal was I was a bit young. I was only 17 when we started. And I kind of wished, in retrospect, that I had another year of growing up before I got to Amherst. I got too caught up in, not too caught up, but I got overly caught up in, social life and girls and booze and one thing or another. Didn't pay quite enough attention to the academic side. So over freshman year was fine because I was sort of had the momentum from high school. But after that, I kind of goofed off too much. I loved the campus, and starting with sophomore year, I actually lived down at Theta Xi, which was also perhaps a negative because I wasn't as closely tied in with the rest of campus as I might otherwise have been. But within Theta Xi, that was a great experience. I became an officer, and I began to develop leadership skills that have served me well the rest of my life. I remember the pledge race, our end of freshman year. And I loved going to football games. I used to go a lot of the away games as well as the home games. Never played a lick of football in my life, but really enjoyed the scene, watching Dan Cochran lead cheers, and it was it was just a overall very positive experience in a ton of ways. I'm sure there were stressful moments, or more than moments, but I don't really remember them. It's like, pain. You don't remember pain very well. So I came away from Amherst with very positive feelings. The only feeling, I could have taken better advantage of what was on offer. I think there are a number of them. I mean, adopting my daughter at the age of 3 months on very short notice, like a week and a half notice, was certainly a monumental moment. And then, trying to raise a child. Had its huge challenges, but in the end, enormously satisfying along the way. My second marriage has been great. I got very much into sailing, which started actually in high school, but I didn't get seriously into it until after Amherst. And a friend of mine and I shared a boat in the 70s, and then through that, got invited to crew on some sailboat races to Bermuda, and ultimately I got invited to do 2 transatlantic sails on one 41-foot and one 45-foot boat. And those were great experiences. I mean, it's a real challenge, 22 days in a 41 or 45-foot piece of real estate with 5 or 6 other people, or actually 4 or 5 other people. And those were sort of challenges in terms of, again, your ability to work with others, to not be annoyed by stupid stuff that somebody might be doing, and also try not to annoy somebody else with your stupid stuff, and to make the thing work, and including in some very, very severe weather. The most dramatic of all, though, was the second time I sailed to Britain. We were hit by 3 gales in a row. The last one was blowing about 55 miles an hour. The water is just absolutely horizontal, and the skipper sends me up to the mast to bring down the last little scrap of sail that's up there, and I'm tethered to the boat and clinging with one hand, and at the same time trying to get the sail down, which came down all right. And over the course of those 3 gales, which happened in like 5 days, one right after the other, the seas just kept getting higher and higher and higher. And by the end, we were sailing through waves that are about 30 to 35 feet high. And it turned out one other thing I was good at was steering. Some people just have that knack. I could sense what the boat was about to do, often much faster than other people. So I had to do more than my share of steering. But particularly at night, when you're going down the face of one of these waves, you need to keep perpendicular to the motion of the wave, or at the bottom you can get rolled and broached. And it turned out that I was good at that. And even though it was terrifying, I kind of loved it. It was a bit like slaloming down a very steep slope, and you just had to keep correcting your course so that you didn't get in trouble at the bottom. There were lots of other adventures, but I like the challenge of, taking this small piece of the universe that's just surrounding you and then making it work against whatever forces came along or whatever challenges came along. That was always really satisfying. Boy. It's funny because every time, I guess I've been to 3 or 4 reunions over the years, and every time I've met a couple of guys whom I scarcely knew, and say, "Hey, wow, too bad I missed you," So I don't even want to sort of prejudge that. Obviously, there are a lot of people I love to see, and in the last few weeks I've seen both Stifler and Solons, who were good friends back then. But now I've seen them, I'm looking forward to being surprised.
Body